Hi guys, I'm Tay. I'm an addict.
I'm Steve. I'm an addict.
And this is Chaos in Recovery.
A podcast aimed towards mental health and addiction in a chaotic world. And today we have a very special guest, our first guest on the podcast, CJ.
It's an honor.
Yeah.
CJ, I'm in recovery.
And we first met CJ in the day program, outpatient program that the three of us actually met right around the same time, right around January. I know I started back in January. You started in December. You started in January,
yeah.
Correct?
Yep. Second week.
Wow.
Yeah, and so much as for me has impressed me about you and your recovery and your resilience in your life. Just about how you're handling your situation that you're in and past situations. And you're such an interesting guy to talk to.
Thank you. Yeah.
I listened to you at Move to Heal, which is a all recovery meeting at a CrossFit gym in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and you talked for like 35 minutes, but it felt like a blur to me because it was not a blur, but it was so interesting listening to you, and you're so captivating to listen to. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about how you got to that day program before we met you?
Yeah, so originally I'm from New Hampshire. Basically, I was using in New Hampshire, things were really bad. I went to leave New Hampshire just to get away from that whole influence. I came to Rhode Island and went to a place called BH Links, and they're like a referral service. The first brochure on the top was the place that we met. I called in, talked to an intake guy. He was amazing. I went into that conversation trying to get out of it, trying to find any excuse, something he said I didn't like, anything to get out of going there. I was just looking for the excuse. Oh, he was a jerk, and he was just perfperfect.
That's our MO.
Yeah, that's what we
100%.
do, right?
We like looking for all the negative shit to turn
Yeah.
us away from what's positive in our lives.
Well, 100%. And I was just, I was scared. In a way, I knew what going to a place like that meant. It meant facing myself, facing my past, facing all all the stuff that kept me sick. And so I was looking for an excuse, but it went perfectly. And I don't know, I never looked back. I started January 13th was my first day, and honestly, the first day was rough. I could say it was amazing. Now I look back at it as amazing, but the first day was rough.
What was so rough about it? Was that your first time in a treatment
Or a
setting?
detox center.
No. So basically, I lived in Florida before. So I had went to this kind of like country club rehab for I think about 20 days, and then my insurance kicked me off. But we played volleyball, and we did one group a day. It was basically it was just a free for all. It was a place to kind of dry out,
Like Malibu's.
Exactly. It was a beautiful place, though.
Sure, yeah.
And I also went to a Christian rehab for a little while. But as far as really working on recovery, the way especially we do it,
Yeah.
and just really hardcore therapy, group therapy, just really establishing the connections. This is my first time doing anything like that.
So you didn't have the therapy in that first group
No
that you had? Not
therapy in the
not
first
we do.
one. The second one, it was always Christian based, so it was just very different.
Did you choose to go to that one?
I
or,
did. I chose to go to both of them.
And
At the time, it was more because everybody, my family knew something was up. You know what I mean? And that's basically, so it was more for other people
Sure.
at that time. This is the first time where I did it myself. You know what I mean? I knew I needed this.
Yeah.
I didn't know exactly what I needed at the time, but I knew I needed to.
Something.
We were talking about my first day going into treatment. Again, I was looking for an excuse to get out of it. I didn't, I was nervous about a whole bunch of things. I'm very self-conscious about myself, so all that came into play. I'd gained a bunch of weight, so I was worried about how I looked, everything. And so when I sat down in the room, there's a cupboard thing, and the only spot, no one likes to sit under the cupboard, so the only spot in the only chair that was available was that chair. I sat down and hit my head so hard.
Oh my God.
In my head, I don't think anybody noticed, but in my head, everybody was looking at me. I felt like a fool. And, you know, I've told other people this story and telling you, like, you didn't save me, but you kind of saved that moment. I think what you did was just turn to me and, like, smile to welcome me. But I needed that smile in that moment because I was about to get up and walk out.
Oh.
And so, like, it was like, yeah, and you know, meeting other people there, hearing their stories, that first day,
Yeah.
hearing the vulnerability of people, and actually relating to some of the stuff they were saying and feeling not alone all of a sudden
Sure.
was a huge thing, and it kept me in.
I have to say, like, the first time I met you, you were just so inspirational. You're the way that you spoke, you wouldn't even known that was your first day. That was like, you just had so much to say, and I remember constantly that you always were on your seat, like waiting to like talk, and I loved that about you. Like I just think it's so, when you go into either a detox or a rehab or whatever it may be, it's really hard to open up. It's hard to share your story, even if it's like a snippet of it.
Yeah.
And you were so open about it, which I think is incredible.
Thank you for saying
really
that.
Hard.
You know, with me, I've always been gregarious and like to talk, but it's always been a version of myself, what people wanted to see.
Sure.
And I think getting in there, I had been wanting to share my real self, the successes, the failures, all of it. I'd been wanting someone to listen to me, and I always acted like I didn't want that type of connection.
Yeah.
I always isolated, but I didn't realize how much I wanted it by how much I had to say, and not just say, but listen. I like in there, I've had trouble listening to speak and not listening to understand, and in there it hasn't been a problem. You know, I'm just connecting with people. I didn't realize how much I needed it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the first time that I really heard you speak, you talked about your family.
Yeah.
So can you give us a little background of your family?
Yeah. So I grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire, with my mom, my dad, and my brother. My dad's Dominican. My mom's like German, Polish, and stuff. It was fun. You know what I mean? There was a lot of fun in there, but there was also a lot of dysfunction,
Sure.
a lot of fighting, you know, and it was a crazy childhood, you know. When I first went into therapy, I basically was like, oh, I lived a normal childhood, and I really believed that until I really started telling my therapist my story. And just she would ask specifics. So I was Mr. Vague, you know. It was good, and but you know, getting into the specifics, I saw some of the real problematic things in my childhood. My parents did the best they could with what they could. In a way, I feel bad that they never got the opportunity I'm getting to really like look at myself, you know, because I think both of my parents had trauma growing up. My dad grew up in the Dominican Republic. He came here when he was about 15. My mom grew up in my hometown of Nashua, New Hampshire. My mom's family, it was a pretty dysfunctional, a lot of toxic stuff in her family. Her father was an alcoholic. There was abuse in the household, but you know, I think their upbringings really, really affected, just like all of us, you know, how they were. But like, I grew up with my brother. I say this all the time. My brother's the best human being I know.
Yeah, I've heard you say
He's
that
the best
several
human
times.
being I know.
Yeah, you've definitely said that.
Yeah,
multiple
you know, I
times.
messaged him the other day, and you know, I just told him. I said thank you for. I said, Jason, I think about our times, you know, as kids, the fun stuff, but then I also think about the times that weren't so fun, and thank you for just being there. And he's like, I'm your brother. You don't have to thank me, but I realized when he said that, I'm more just thankful for him.
Yeah.
Because I really had like partner in crime, literally and figuratively, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
And you have a daughter.
I do. I have a son named Brady. He's 11, and I have a daughter named Naya, and she's 12. Yeah. They're amazing.
Are you close with them?
I am. You know, with Brady, I've been close, very close. He's a boy. I've been close with him since he was young. With my daughter, it's just we're really getting closer and closer.
Love that.
You know, we've just gone through so much together in the past few years.
Yeah.
I can tell you the story about you know, on March 4th, 2024. Basically, I'm sitting on my couch, and I was actually up north, and I get a call from my daughter's aunt, and I think I had talked to her a few times, but it wasn't normal for her to call me. And so I was doing something, I forwarded, I think I was studying, and then I got a call from my mom, and I forwarded that too. But then I got another call from my mom back to back. And so I answered, and basically she's like, CJ, are you sitting down? And I'm like, yeah. And she said, my daughter's mother's name is Angela. And she said Angela and the kids were in a bad car accident. Angela didn't survive.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was just, I felt like I went deaf for a second
Yeah.
when she said it. And I almost didn't want her to say any more because I didn't know what she was going to say about Naya.
Yeah.
You know, so Naya, they were in a bad accident. I mean, I guess the car flipped. I don't know the exact specifics, but like Angela passed and my daughter was just really, really badly injured. Yeah, she broke both legs, ribs, fractured her neck. Her arm was almost severed. You know, it was a big thing. So obviously, I went on a plane and went to the hospital, Shands Pediatric ICU. I want to always, if you've never met an angel on earth, go there and you'll meet them because they were just, I can't even give them enough credit. They were so amazing. But yeah, it was months of nursing her back to health. Like where we were living after she got out of the hospital, I had to carry her everywhere. And just with all the stuff that goes into that, especially me being a guy, a dad, and a girl, it was just like, we got to know each other like no other. It was just like trial by fire. Sure. Yeah. And I just feel so lucky to have such a big place in her life now.
Strong girl.
She is amazing. I tell the story a lot, but it was just a little over a year after she got into the accident that she pitched in a game and won like pitcher. Like she had a no-hitter.
Wow.
To get her team to the championship. And it was just like,
that's incredible.
With the same arm. You know what I mean? She told me, it's funny, she told me when she was in the hospital that she would pitch again. The doctors were telling me that, listen, she might not even be able to make a fist.
Oh, wow.
And I remember telling me she's going to pitch. And something in how she said it, I was like, man, I believe her. And she's tough.
That's
perseverance, baby. That's awesome.
So, what do your kids know about your recovery?
Right now, nothing.
Oh, okay.
My son, he's autistic, but he's like high functioning, you know. With him, he's still very young. Even though they're only a year apart, he's a lot younger than her.
Sure.
I haven't really broached it with him. You know what I mean? With her, I had to not talk to her for a while and be away from her because of my addiction. And so she knew something was up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've told her that, you know, I've had issues. I actually tell her everything but, you know, she goes to therapy for obviously the trauma of her accident.
Yeah.
So I tell her I'm in therapy and I'm getting better but yeah, we haven't talked about it. You know, the next time I go to visit her, I think it's going to be time not to tell her everything. You know, but I always tell her, do you want to hear the kid truth or the adult truth?
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I want her to know, you know, lately she's been just kind of hanging out with the wrong crowd a little bit, you know, making those preteen choices.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so I think by sharing some of it with her, some of the things I wish I could take back. Obviously, she has to make her own mistakes.
Sure.
But yeah, I think it's coming to time to share some of it. That's something I'm conflicted about how much I share with them. You know, it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I know for me with family members, I mean, I don't care what age they are, like, I have a tough time talking about my recovery, also my addiction and things like that. Yeah. It's like how, in your head, how do you see it going? Like, talking to a daughter, bringing that to light. You know, I know there's only so much you can say to a preteen, but, like, I gotta imagine that'd be a tough conversation.
100%. So with me, honestly, the fact that I'm doing this is a huge step for me. My addiction has been a huge point of shame.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I lived two lives so much of my life where I had what everybody saw, and then the secret addiction. Like most of the time I've ever used was by myself.
Yeah.
You know, it was something, people knew something was going on. People knew I was using drugs, but I would be the one who wouldn't show up, who wouldn't call. So, you know, doing this, some of my family are going to see this. People who I went to high school with, people who maybe, you know, I had a business teaching martial arts and fitness for a while. People who used to take martial arts from me. So, you know, there's some nerves and there's some, you know, anxiety with that. So then when it comes to talking to family, I have been sharing a lot with family who I'd never really talked to about it before lately. With the kids, there's a whole bunch of anxiety about it. I don't think there would ever be any judgment. One of the ways I've always been with both of my kids is like very understanding. I've been the furthest from perfect, but the one thing is I've always been very understanding, just always thinking about, you know, what's best for them, what, even if they did something wrong, how is this going to affect them, you know? And I think, I have a feeling they're going to follow suit, just follow my example, how I've been with them. I never want them to use it as an excuse to go try stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is, but I don't see it going bad. It's just my own insecurity. I'm still getting over the shame of just having this addiction for so long. You know, I know it's not my fault. You know what I mean? I know it's neural pathways in the brain, and I've got, at our treatment, I've got to learn so much about that, which it's taken the shame out a lot.
Yeah.
To know that, like, all right, I did a lot of bad things when I was using.
Absolutely.
And drinking. And I am responsible for some of those bad things, but I was also sick.
Yes.
And it's not because I'm some bad person, you know?
Yeah.
Not until I was there for 2 months could I even ever say I'm not a bad person. The other day I said I was a good person, which
Wow.
if you guys knew me months ago, you would know it's unbelievable for me to actually.
How'd that make you feel?
It was surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I'd never thought I could actually think it, which is pretty crazy, but yeah.
I think that's the crazy part too, is like you don't realize that it is a disease when you go in, right? Like
Yeah.
you have so much shame and you have so much guilt, but learning the pathway of everything, you just start to realize that it isn't like an addiction is a disease. And,
Yes.
And that's what, you know, we can't, it's not our fault.
Yeah, well, you know, the shame for me came from I didn't have the willpower. You know, my daughter got healthy physically, but then, you know, that's when you deal with everything else.
Yeah.
And that was when my addiction got completely unmanageable.
Sure.
I had to separate from her in what I feel is some of the most vital moments. So it's like I had so much shame, like, you don't have the willpower. You can't stop doing this for your daughter who needs you. You know, you can't stop doing this for your son who needs you. He's growing into a man now. And like, so just the fact that I didn't have the willpower, and when it became unmanageable for me, it was completely unmanageable. Like it was, when I say my whole life, my whole life.
Yeah.
And it was, so that shame was just, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. And getting over that has been awesome.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Taylor said
Sure.
about it not being our fault. Like when we're not supplied with the knowledge of how to quit, of how to cope, of how to be aware, and I think therapy brings that. 12-step programs brings that, but like, after you've known and start to understand who you are and stuff like that, it is your choice now.
Agreed.
It is your decision
Yeah.
whether you want to entertain bringing in a toxic lifestyle again.
Yep.
You know, and that can go along with anything. You know, we can cross addict from drugs and alcohol to shopping to sex to porn
100%.
to masturbation to anything very quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
Trade one off for the other.
Absolutely, and it there's always that more factor that you talked a lot Saturday at Move to Heal about the ego part of it, which
Yes.
I loved.
Yeah.
Because you spoke about how you fed off of the validation from other people by
100%.
certain things, for certain sports,
Yeah.
or certain women or
Yep.
certain scenarios that gave you that dopamine hit. It was
Yes.
like, holy shit, I'm fucking somebody.
Yeah.
I'm somebody. I
Yeah.
need more of this
Yeah.
because this is what I've been looking for my entire life.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that started early.
Yeah.
I just remember just feeling not noticed when I was a kid until I started doing karate and until I went to elementary school. I did really well in school, always on high honors. And I remember like the joy it would bring my parents, and I would really get noticed. I started winning karate tournaments, and my father kind of always did his own thing. You know, when I was really young, I remember talking to him on the phone when he was gone on a business trip to the Dominican Republic more than really seeing him when I was really, really young. But the one thing is the martial arts and and just doing well, achieving, got me noticed.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite memories, we didn't do a ton of family dinners, but in sixth grade, they had an award ceremony. And I won almost like every award. Oh, yeah. And I just remember seeing my father's face when I would walk back, seeing my mom's face. That night we had dinner together, and it was so happy. You know what I mean? And I just think I somehow equated, achieving that dopamine rush of people looking at me in in a certain way, to my worth. You know what I mean? That was my identity.
There must have been this underlying thing too of like, look, I brought the family together.
Yeah.
Like I made this situation happen.
Maybe.
Like
Yeah.
I got my parents to be happy at a dinner together type of thing, and like those things for me too. It's like my parents were, they brought us up great and stuff, and they fought like regular couples and stuff like that. But like I knew when I messed up, I saw them fight.
Yeah.
And I knew when I did something good, it brought the family together. And like that was such a revelation for me because like I was also very good at school.
Yeah.
So like, and not that good at sports.
Yeah.
I played a lot of sports, but I wasn't that good, mediocre. So like I never got the validation there. The school thing was like my validation.
Yes.
And bringing home a good report card and, was everything to me.
Yes.
For a very long time.
Yes. I heard someone talk about self-esteem, and, someone telling you you're no good is bad for your self-esteem, always hearing you're no good, but always getting praise. Always getting praise. And, like, in my early life, and in some ways through other parts of my life, I had that. Like, in school, I did play sports. Like, I used to have, like, my own cheer from the cheerleaders. Like, stuff like that. Oh, my gosh. I, like, ate that stuff up. But here's the thing. It's like... But those moments lasted shorter and shorter. You know what I mean? Especially in, like, middle school. Like, I was president of my class, and I remember, like, giving the speech. But, like, as soon as there was no one looking at me anymore, it, like, I just felt very empty. Yeah. And, and honestly, in middle school, that's when the drugs came in.
Sure.
That's, like... And that... Like weed was the first one, started feeling that, where I just wasn't feeling, and my brain's going a million miles an hour all the time, and that kind of, said it. But like, that I made my identity by what other people thought of me, truly. And even though I feel so blessed to be able to live those experiences, achieve the things I've achieved, and get that credit, but in a way, it really hurt me because if I wasn't achieving something, I felt like no one was looking at me.
Sure.
CJ, I remember you saying one time in group that you felt when you were doing your martial arts that was the one time that you really could put your addiction aside.
Yeah.
And do you feel like you found another way to, I know like now, we have copious amounts of therapy and everything, in our sober groups and stuff. But is there a thing that you have found joy now?
Well, with the martial arts, it wasn't just the martial arts. It was different, like martial arts, and then like with other things I did later in life with like the business. If I had like a purpose, I could put them down for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I just feel like I said it the other day. I'm seeing these faint glimmers of hope. Faint glimmers of freedom, of a life where when everything's quiet and it's just me, I can just sit there and not need anything to block it out. Wow. I can just be take a breath and be fine. I'm getting those little glimmers, and it's starting to happen. I just want to live a life where, everything's not going to go perfect. My life is the furthest thing from perfect right now, but I'm pushing through. I'm not trying to hide. I'm not trying to numb it with anything. I think for me, I need a purpose-driven life. So eventually I want to find a purpose, but I want to be able to live where I don't need that in order to be okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the only time I've had these little things of being okay is, like I said before, when I was, doing the martial arts, when I owned businesses and people were like, one of my businesses, I was a karate teacher and, being the black belt at the front of the class, all the kids look, you know what I mean? It was just feeding that thing. I just want that hole to be filled. I don't think we'll ever be able to completely fill it, but it to be enough filled where I'm just happy being CJ Rodriguez, me, whatever I am. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Now, I know that you we'll put the addiction aside for a second. Did you ever struggle with depression, mental health, and stuff like that?
Yes, a lot. I noticed the depression would really kick on when I would stop using. You know what I mean? Sometimes when I was using, but yeah, I had some bad depressive bouts, thoughts of suicide, one attempt. You know what I mean? Like it got really, really bad. At times I thought maybe I was bipolar. You know what I mean? Because I was like, but I was also using drugs and then not using drugs, so that'll make you up and down. But yeah, the depression has gotten really bad. Where it was the worst was right before I came to Rhode Island. Wow. There were times where I thought I was thinking about suicide. I felt death might be coming for me anyway. I went as far as to write notes to my kids.
Wow.
I was talking to people I knew about if anything should happen to me, this is how I want the funeral. Like the depression was really, really bad. Honestly, I think having my kids saved me because I'm a firm believer if I did something to myself, my demons in some way, shape, or form would be passed on to them, and yeah, I just wouldn't do it, and I'm thankful for that, but the depression throughout my life has been bad. I was depressed before I even knew it was depression, just not being able to get out of bed, and honestly, the drugs would either put me in it or kick me out of it, so it's like,
they do serve positive purposes like drugs and alcohol. Like they do get you in a certain mood or a certain out of a certain headspace that is beneficial.
Yeah.
But in the long run, this is just a toxic game of cat 100%. And mouse. Trying to administer substances as a relief from just. For lack of a better word, sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, drugs became my problem, but it started off, drugs and alcohol were my solution.
Yes.
At the time where I tried weed for the first time, it wasn't because of this, but my parents were really fighting. You know what I mean? There was a lot of turmoil in the house. And I remember being real anxious. I didn't even realize what anxiety was back then. I just remember not feeling right and trying weed for the first time, and I was like, whew, I found my solution.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh. And with the, drugs and ego kind of went combined with me when in my teenage and early 20s where I was doing psychedelics, going to raves, trying everything, and it was part of the party lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And I felt in my head, I don't know if this is the reality, I was like the king of the party, the king of the partiers. I don't know if that was true. In my head, that's what was happening.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, there were times where it was fun. You know what I mean? There were some good times, and so it really was my solution. I know that cocaine was my drug of choice, and I hated the way it made me feel, which is weird.
Sure.
I had euphoria like the first few times, but it was really short. But what it did was get me out of self.
Yeah.
I would get paranoid sometimes, but that was better than being in my head.
Were you like a window watcher type deal?
No, but like not a window watcher, but like I would feel something. No, I was never peeking. I was never breaking the blinds. No, I've seen a few people.
That's how I got on meth sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes,
but if
I was up for a couple days, I'd be window watching.
There was bouts of paranoia.
Yeah,
that embarrassing memories. Because I was always thinking about what people thought. The times when I started using around people, I didn't want them to know how paranoid I was.
Sure.
That's how bad my insecurity was, though.
Yeah.
Because that paranoia is like, you're paranoid about some pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
When you get paranoid, and people would be around, and I would still be kind of maintaining, but
Yeah.
in my head, I was at that window, looking out the window, you know.
Right.
But I never,
Never broke any shades.
I never broke any shades.
Nice. So how is your thought process today, like the day to day about using, being in recovery? Like, do you get days of obsession? Do you get days where you just think about it and?
It pops in my head, but not for a while. Where it's to the point of getting to obsession.
Yeah.
This is awesome therapist you guys know, and he said play the tape through.
Yeah.
And he talked about how our brains will go back to using, but only show you like the preview of the movie. Show you all the best hits of that. So my brain would go to using in just that little good aspect. And he said, play the tape through.
Yeah.
What happens after?
Yeah.
What happens the next day? What happens when you can't, and just playing that tape through, I just got, last week was a rough week. And for a moment, when I was getting out of the shower one day, my brain said, fuck it. If you're going to go through all this stuff, you might as well have a little fun.
Sure.
But thank God my brain said fun, because when I heard that word fun in my brain, I'm like, is it fun? And I really played the tape through. I would go drink. The drink would make me want the cocaine. Yeah. I would do it once. I wouldn't do it for like a week, but then I would get it. But that second time I picked up, I'd be off to the races, and I would be right back to where I was very quickly.
Yeah.
Because when it became unmanageable, it was obsession immediately. So now, little things trigger me, little weird things.
Yeah, I was going to ask
like
you
those torch lighters.
Oh yeah.
For some reason, hearing that
Interesting.
triggers me. Certain smells trigger me. Yeah. But playing that tape through has been a savior for me, because my brain has not. Hopefully it doesn't, but it has not gone to the obsession, because I immediately, what's the reality of what you're thinking? What's going to happen?
Sure.
And I know what's going to happen because I've seen this movie before, and that has really, really helped me. Just knowing that my brain is trying to trick me. Early on in treatment, I learned about the midbrain, you know what I mean, and the frontal cortex, and glutamate, and dopamine, and how our brains really trick us into being like, oh, it won't be that bad if I just have one drink, and it's really deceiving us. And once I learned that it really was a physical thing and what to look out for, it wasn't just me being weak and wanting to use again.
Yeah.
And once I gave myself that grace, the shame started to go away, and it was kind of like I just, one of the things I did that really helped me was, I don't want to badmouth anybody here, but my internal dialogue with myself, I used to talk to myself like my mom talked to me. And my mom's, she's not always the easiest person. It was just hard.
Yeah.
And one day I said something to myself. I can't remember what I said, but I just thought, I'm like, would you say that to Naya or Brady like that? And I told myself, this week, anything you do, anything you're mad at yourself about, handle it how you would handle it with Naya and Brady.
Smart.
How you would talk to them. And let me tell you, it was an epiphany.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
because
a great way to look at it.
I became so much easier, so much more understanding, and until I became less judgmental and easier on the people around me. Yeah. I didn't realize that I was treating people the same way I was treating myself.
Yeah.
So that was a huge thing.
Very interesting. What else is in your toolbox? Do you go to meetings? I know you play pickleball.
I just started pickleball. Listen, I used to make fun of all the people that played pickleball. I'm also getting up there in age. I'm in my 40s, so I haven't liked to. Acknowledge that. So I love pickleball. We have a therapist that says the opposite of addiction is connection, and that is true. Like a lot of us, I isolated.
Yeah.
Not just with doing drugs, but just I would be like the life of the party, but all alone while being the life of the party.
Sure.
Always a version. So my biggest thing is making connections.
Yeah.
I have some real friends in treatment. I've been going to AA and NA meetings, meeting some real people. When I first went, like you guys know me, I like to talk, obviously. But I would go to these AA and NA meetings. I wouldn't say a word. I would show up right before, and I would be out of there right after.
It took you a little while to get into those meetings, right?
It did.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was like social anxiety. And it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, oh, I love to talk. And then I'm like, oh, no, you like to show a version of yourself.
Yeah.
And for some reason,
Ego.
it was you and another person in treatment, and Steve. It was a few people that I just felt comfortable with you guys right away, which let me share right away. I wanted you guys to know the real me, even if it was kind of ugly sometimes.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that when I first went to AA. It's taken a while, you know. I still haven't gotten a sponsor. I'm looking for one.
That's okay. Takes
You know,
time.
I'm a perfectionist, and I'm like, you know, I need to do it. I had a guy who works at our treatment center give me the NA book. I think I'm going to start with the big book. I've been listening to the Joe and Charlie tapes,
Okay.
which I love. And so, yeah, so basically I've been doing that, going to meetings, doing treatment, and just really making connections, you know, playing pickleball, doing different activities with the people. I reconnected with one of my old best friends
That's great.
who we used to party together.
Oh, wow.
And now he has over a year. What really there was like a week where I was like, my brain was telling me, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
You're good. And it was the same week of his 1 year.
Oh, wow.
And I went to his commitment, and it like just solidified my heart. Jerry can do this. Sorry, Jerry. Jerry can do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so reconnected with him. He just got married. He's expecting a kid.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? I'm going to be the godfather, you know.
Oh.
But those type of healthy connections,
Yeah.
honestly, have saved me.
amazing.
Because once you know, I'm getting towards the point where probably a month and a half, maybe 2 months, maybe sooner, I'm going to be done with treatment. And it scares me.
Yeah.
But the one thing that makes me feel solid is the connections I've made. Because, you know, leaving treatment, when I went to that country club treatment, I made some good connections, but I never talked to any of them.
Yeah. Sure.
And then I was by myself, and, you know, sometimes with people who aren't in recovery, it's hard to share some of the things with them.
Very
It's hard, you know what I mean? And then you stop sharing. And as soon as you stop sharing, that's when I heard the term prelapse for the first time today, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, before you go out and relapse, there's weeks where you're hiding stuff, you're feeling shame or embarrassment about sharing certain things, and yeah.
It's like your body internally knows, like, weeks in
Telling you.
advance. Like, you know,
Yeah.
so it's really important to keep those connections. It's really important
Huge.
to, you know, keep talking, you know, even
Yes.
if it's to somebody, call somebody, pick up the
Yes.
phone, do something. Hit a meeting if you need to.
Yes.
It's super important. Do you prefer NA or AA meetings?
Honestly, I don't know yet.
Okay.
You know what I've noticed? So I went to one meeting one time, and I'm like, I hate that meeting.
You're gonna
I never
find
want to
those.
go back there. I was forced to go back there, and it was a completely different meeting
Yeah.
2 weeks later. So I still I've only done I've been going for consistently for a month now, maybe 6 weeks. So I haven't hit all of them enough.
Yeah.
I like the ones that are a little bit grittier.
Okay.
I've noticed with some AA, some of the meetings are kind of tight, and like you know, one time someone was sharing and someone's like, language. I'm like, they're bawling their eyes out.
Yeah.
Like let them say the F word,
Yeah.
please. You know, so, but honestly, all meetings are different. Each meeting is different each time.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't have a preference. I haven't got into the NA book or the big book yet. So I think once I start doing that, it's
Yeah.
funny. I
You'll
need
find
to
your
start.
way. Yeah.
And now I'm committing myself to
It's
doing
okay.
it. So
It takes time. You
Yeah.
don't have to jump right into
yeah,
it.
I think it's time now for me, though. I think it's time.
If you don't mind sharing,
Yeah.
you don't have to if you don't want to.
No, please.
Well, like, what are some of the things that you're working on in one-on-one counseling?
Yeah. Lots of shame.
Yep.
Lots of shame. My ego has been propelled by my insecurity. You know what I mean? And so I vacillate between the two things, and I vacillate between shame and just maybe overthinking my importance or something, you know?
Yeah.
So just dealing with childhood trauma, I just realized I formed core beliefs when I was a kid that are very unhealthy. I'm realizing, you know, that a lot of the behaviors, even the bad behaviors I've done, using or not, the toxic things I've done, originally I started when I was a kid to protect myself. So I'm working on just my adult self knowing you don't have to do that stuff anymore. That danger is gone, you know? And so just really working on that type of stuff, you know? Being honest with myself.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I lied to myself about, and I hold them as gospel truth.
Absolutely.
Like these things that I think are just like ironclad, and they're bullshit. They're not real, and it's hurt me a lot, and it's hurt the people I love a lot, by believing these things.
I mean, I always say we are the worst liars and manipulators to ourselves. And then so in return, we follow up that lying manipulation with everyone else.
Yeah.
Because if I told myself the truth, I probably wouldn't be an addict for so long.
100%.
So I had to dodge around, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it is, or this isn't going to, this one little use isn't going to take me to where I used to be. If I was, and I know that truth is there, and I have to manipulate to work
100%.
myself around it to be able to do the prelapse, to have a couple weeks where I talk myself into it day by day by day, and not wrap myself out to somebody else and say, look, I'm starting to have these feelings.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how small it is.
100%.
Because me in early recovery, every time I don't tell somebody I'm thinking about using, it's like, and my ego comes back, and my ego tells me, look, you don't have to tell somebody that. You got this. You're 4 months sober. You're 6 months sober. You got this. You can take care of it by yourself. The second I start doing that, I add another one on top, and another one on top, and another one on top, and a couple weeks down the line, that relapse is evident.
Yeah.
And
I can completely relate to that.
Yeah.
Completely. Even probably a week ago, my brain did that thing where, cocaine's your real problem. Cocaine's your real problem. If you take care of the stuff inside you, you get the right treatment, then you can have some drinks later on. Down the road, but later on, that little reservation thing, like, it still doesn't, you know?
Absolutely.
And here's the thing, I talk about it because if I don't talk about it, my brain will double down on it. And so right now, the way I think about it is that's wrong.
Yeah.
The next time I'll think about it, well, maybe. The third time I don't talk about it, you know what? I think we're on to something. The fourth time, I'm ready to go drinking.
Yeah, I was going to say, how do you switch that mentality? How did you switch that when you thought about it?
Just having people tell me, talk about it. Talk about it. There was some stuff I was holding back at the beginning just for shame. I thought I should be I'm getting all this therapy. I'm with all these people. Why am I doing this? Why am I feeling this?
Yeah.
I felt like I was failing.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I felt there was this like one straight line, one perfect recovery path, and it was weighing me down. And I think eventually it might have sent me back out there. And when I shared it, and then I started sharing more stuff, it just was so obvious in the difference.
Yeah.
It was so obvious in how I felt, where my brain went. Like the drug dreams were a big thing.
Oh, I'm sure.
I did not want to share that I felt shame over something my subconscious dreaming.
Yeah.
You're not the only one.
Yeah, I felt so much shame about it.
Yeah.
And I was just really thankful for who was there that day, because I shared it, and other people were like, oh, I had one 2 days ago. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I thought, like, a lot of times our brain tells us we're the only one. And when we're the only one, that's hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah, I think too, it has a lot to do with the ego part of saying, you're weak if you have these dreams.
100%.
You're weak.
Yes.
You're weak if you're not strong enough at 3 months sober, 2 months sober. It's like, you're fucking 2 months sober. Give yourself a little break.
Yeah.
But we don't give ourselves breaks.
Yeah.
A lot of addicts and alcoholics need to have that power or control inside of us.
Yeah.
Or so we think.
To
feel okay.
Yeah.
When in reality, that power and control is the exact thing that keeps us going back to drugs and alcohol.
100%. 100%.
And trying to keep the chaos in your mind is, and not letting it release like you're doing, and talking about it and things like that. And I think one of the biggest things for me is having a close network where I can always call somebody and they'll be on the other line and they'll talk me through anything. But also being vulnerable enough to do that.
The vulnerability and the weakness is something that I'm really working on. Yeah. I wouldn't say being comfortable, but just being willing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just something I've had a hard time with. Even in addiction especially, I remember how many family things I missed. How many times I said I would be at a place, and I would be using into that night, and I would see the hours counting down.
Yeah.
And I would just hate myself. You can't stop this. You have this big thing to do. This is important. Some things were like, so important. Some things I still have so much regret over missing. And so that same weakness, it's like the same thing.
Yeah.
Just feeling really weak and so feeling vulnerable is the same type of thing. So it's like, our brain might not know the difference,
Yeah.
So it's definitely, being vulnerable is, but it's new to me, but I've been like out speaking and, trying to be vulnerable. I just, I thank God for the treatment where we're at, because I don't know, like I've never been to another one like that, and I never thought I could be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've been able to really show myself. And let me tell you, it doesn't always feel good in the moment.
Yeah.
Like I'll talk in group. I don't know if this has ever happened to you guys, but I'll talk in group, and then after I'm second guessing what I said.
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Oh, my
How
God.
people judged it.
All the fucking time.
And like, really? Okay.
All the fucking
Yeah.
time.
Oh my gosh. Like we did Move to Heal the other day. After I'm like, I couldn't remember what I said. And then I'm like, I was very self-conscious about it.
It's funny. We did a commitment last night, and
Did you?
I
Yeah.
had texted, and Steve was like, "Great job," and I was like, "I really don't feel like I did, because all the things I was trying to say didn't come out exactly like how I wanted to."
Yes.
So we think about that.
Yeah.
And we like I don't know. It's just something our brains.
Yeah,
do.
it's for a purpose. We need to think about all the negative shit to push ourselves further towards our disease.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's what I think. As like, you're not good enough.
Yeah.
That same negative self-talk.
Yeah.
We feed off of that.
Yeah.
For a purpose.
Yeah.
And it takes a while, I'm sure, to brainwash yourself into realizing that these negative thoughts are just your invasive personality. That it's not really your reality. It's just the conjuring up of that reality that you think is correct for you at the time. And it comes with the perfectionist thing.
Yes.
Like a lot of addicts and alcoholics, they have to be a certain way at all times. They have to present a certain way.
Yeah.
They have to get that validation. And it's like, it's a tough thing to always be critical about every single fucking thing that you do.
Yeah.
Well, I know inside of me, there was always so much chaos that I wanted to show perfection on the outside.
100%.
Especially when I first got clean and sober. Oh my gosh, I was like a wreck, and I was probably horrible to be around because I just wanted everything perfect.
Yeah.
I wanted to be at the gym, going to treatment, getting a job, perfect relationship with everybody, all in the same week.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
That's
and it's
how we
like I
are.
feel
That's
like
how
I
our
was so
brains are.
used to the chaos that I want, and it, I still haven't completely slowed down on that, but
of course.
but yeah,
110%, right? That's what
I'm
we
telling
want.
you. I think it was also guilt and shame of all the things I didn't do, all the things I looked at as failures, you know what I mean? And I just wanted to make up for something that can't be made up for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The past is the past. It's funny you're saying how we get in our brains, because what we're doing right now is that connection.
Sure.
Where I might have been feeling like, I'm the only one who gets self-conscious, I'm the only one. But right there, you guys are telling me now, man, it's me too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that connection that'll save us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
You know?
I go in spells at 12-step meetings where like I won't talk for weeks because, and I always like I have something to say, but I'm like, this is gonna be stupid. This is gonna be this. This is gonna be that. And like the second I don't, it's like it'll last for like fucking weeks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Until I finally break that spell
100%.
again. Then I'm like, I'm an idiot.
But
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
get yourself to that point, though, right? Like you have to bring yourself to that confidence because, or gain that confidence, though.
Yeah.
Because like I'll even go like Monday nights. Like I think I've gone a few weeks without speaking, and I'm like, why am I doing that? So like I make it a point to where I was making a point to talk at every single meeting, and then I like kind of had like a dry spell, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm like, okay, so tonight I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna speak tonight because it's just so important. You have to be able to get stuff off, even if it's something little. Like it's you have to build that confidence to keep doing it, and it's tough to do it, but
so I've done things where I've performed my whole life, and whether I was performing or not, so when I go to meetings, I have to watch out a little bit with both.
Yeah.
I don't want to just talk just to talk.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And just to perform and show people how well I'm doing.
Yeah.
But it's weird. Sometimes when I have something really to say, I'm hesitant.
Yeah.
I'm shy. So I've been making the rule for myself. If you have something that's on your heart, especially something I need to get out,
Yes.
you say it.
Good.
And there have been a couple times where the meeting just went where I couldn't talk, and I pulled someone aside,
Good.
which was huge because
That's
one of the times I
perfect.
didn't know the person. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm about to do diarrhea of the mouth into your ear,
I love
you know. But for me, it was huge because when I have something grandiose to say, I love saying it.
Yeah.
But when it's raw, it might be jumbled. My ADHD's crazy that day, and I'm all over the place. I don't really like to say it.
But it's so you don't take that home with you.
100%.
And it's just like when the saying of like don't take work home with you. It's just like that too. Like,
Absolutely.
if you have something on your mind, pull somebody aside
Yeah.
if you don't get a chance to share. And they preach that at meetings.
Yep.
Which is a good
Yeah.
thing.
My mind has changed about meetings. It happened all of a sudden where one day I was talking about an NA meeting and I was telling someone we. And I remember I was like, holy crap, I've been saying they. And it was the first time I said we.
Oh, yeah.
And like suddenly I was just looking at meetings as like a solace, like
interesting.
a place I get to go
Yeah.
instead of I have to go.
Yeah.
And it just happened.
It's funny
You know
how
what I mean?
when that turns, right?
Yeah, and it was when I said, "Well, we did this.
Yeah.
We did this prayer or something like that."
Yeah.
But I was like, "Oh, I didn't say it." I never realized I was saying they
Yeah.
until I said we.
That's a very
and
interesting
so it kind of
thing to
yeah.
acknowledge.
But it's nice to be able to. I had some rough days last week,
Yeah.
and it was nice to be able to go to a meeting. One of them I didn't even talk at, but like I just heard people talking, people welcoming me. And just knowing that there's other people hurting like I'm hurting, fighting this fight with me, surviving like I am right now. It's nice. It's nice.
One of the things that really attracted me towards you in our group sessions at our IOP was always the thirst for, or the search for knowledge. Like, you always came in with the notebook, always jotting things down.
Yeah.
But also on the other end, you would take the constructive criticism
Yes.
or the constructive feedback and want to know more about it.
Yeah.
Now, was that a comfortable thing for you?
Yeah, I've always been hungry for knowledge. Like I'm like the person always watching documentaries. I did well in school because I loved it.
Yeah.
Like I loved to learn. I love history. So it's kind of like that same mind frame. I know with the notebook, I was overboard when I first went in there because I was
I loved it.
But like especially when they started talking about what it did in the brain.
Yeah.
When we started talking about internal family systems,
It was fascinating.
Just all this stuff that I'm like, I think this can help me.
Yeah.
I think this relates to me. Yeah, it's not hard. I enjoy it. I definitely take the criticism. Like, someone said to me when I first got in there, they were saying it in general, not specifically to me, but they were like, we've done it our way this whole time. Why not try it? And at first I was like in the program, but running my own program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just suddenly was like, I'm going to listen to everything they say. And even if it doesn't work, I'm going to at least try everything they tell me
Try
to
and
do.
apply it,
I'm not
yeah.
always perfect at that. I still, like, in some ways do it my own way and fight with that stuff. But, just getting, like, there's so much good information there. The way they run the groups, none of them are alike. We'll have something that's real introspective. I'll be talking about my childhood or some type of thing that happened when I was younger. And then the next class, I'll be learning about a model of therapy. I'll be learning about there was just so much, and I just really wanted all of it when I got there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a special place. I mean, for somebody like me who has been to every rehab in the state multiple times, every detox, every IOP in the state, that place holds there's a special energy in there.
100%.
That they have a certain way with all the different counselors and all their different attributes. They all have something different going on, and they bring this same kind of daily mentality. I mean, we were doing 6 hours a day,
Literally.
full day, and
Those are long days.
some days are tough, but majority of the days you were very. At least I was always attracted and ready to go and ready to listen to what somebody else had to say and ready to help the next person, ready to have somebody help me. And like, I think a lot of people when they're first getting into recovery hate the feedback.
Yeah.
Or have a very resistant towards it because
they're very resistant to the fact that they need to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only change one thing, not just put the drugs and alcohol down. They need to change who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very tough thing to tell somebody.
Absolutely.
I remember,
you have to be ready, though.
Oh, that's what it is. You have
to be
want
ready
it.
to hear
you
that
have
stuff.
To want it, and you have to be ready.
Yeah, with where we are, what I like about how they do it, it's like separate moving pieces that form a whole. With our therapists, I really, really, I really, really like the way they do it. You really have to be ready. I consider myself lucky. I had so much bad stuff happen right before I got there. I was just at my lowest. I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
I was literally, sometimes, I have nightmares. I've had them for a long time, but my nightmares were getting so bad with the drug use. I would stay up 6 days, like sometimes up to 6 days in a row.
Oh my God.
And probably using 20 of those hours.
Yep.
Wow.
And so what I was doing, so by the time I got in there, I was like, tell me what to do. Because unmanageable was an understatement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Today I think is like 106 days or something.
That's
that I've been clean and
awesome.
sober.
Yeah.
And but there were moments where I could literally couldn't go 106 minutes.
Yeah.
Without it was the obsession the whole time. I was either using or fighting not to use, or I was taking something to pass out and go to sleep.
Sure.
So just
avoidance. Yeah.
So this is amazing. And so when I got there, that's where I was at. You know what I mean? I was you have to be ready. And sometimes people like me who are hard headed, you have to be beat down completely to the ground. So because if I still had anything and I still was doing a little bit well, my brain would have told me you're not that bad, because that's what it did my whole life.
Absolutely.
Did you have a rock bottom, CJ?
Yes, I did. So I got into some legal trouble, and then after that legal trouble, things didn't completely change. You know what I mean? My brain was still doing the same things. If I would have stayed in my hometown, I would have stayed in the same cycle.
Sure.
And I'm like, if all this stuff happening can't make me stop, I cannot stop.
Yeah.
I cannot stop. And that's when I was I didn't have to think about whether or not I had a problem, whether I could do this on my own, because I had times in my life where I stopped using, but I still would have that weekend go crazy. I was never able, especially not alcohol.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a given, So for me, I knew, it was complete rock bottom. That was the time where I said, I was literally writing notes to my kids, goodbye notes, talking about my funeral, and fighting myself whether or not I wanted to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Why didn't you go through with it?
Really, my kids. I really wanted to die, but I was just thinking, I know stuff from my childhood, how it's affected me to this day.
Sure.
And it's I'm an asshole, but I'm not a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I could never do that to my kids.
Right.
And now I just love life, and I want life so much that I'm just so thankful. Whatever stopped me from doing it, I'm happy. But it was my kids, because there were moments where I'm all I'm doing is hurting the people around me.
Yeah.
Of course.
All I'm doing is hurting my family. I am not giving anything to this world. I'm just taking.
Yeah.
And it was a horrible feeling, and I just didn't want to feel that way anymore. So if it wasn't for the thought of those two, there's a good chance I would have.
That's awesome.
I just want to say, I feel just from the first day that I met you to today, you have completely done a 360.
Really?
You just
Thank you.
are. I mean, I'm just blown away by just the amount of courage that you have, the knowledge that you have, the knowledge that you take in and that you give out, and you don't just take it in. You understand it, you try and understand it, and then you try and feed it back to people, which I think is really huge. It's hard for somebody to take it all in and then try and help people as well.
Yeah.
And I just think that, you've come a super long way.
I really, really appreciate that.
It's fun to watch it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, CJ, this has been great, man. I'm so glad you honored us and being our first guest.
I'm honored to be your first guest.
Yeah.
I am honored to be your first guest.
And there's certain people that are always going to have an impact, especially like in the recovery world. There's a lot of people that you're not going to forget, and you were definitely one of those people where we both were like, let's get him on.
Yeah.
1, he's interesting. 2, he's vulnerable enough to talk about it all. And then 3, the awareness that goes along with how much you're in touch with yourself and the stuff that you did, but also the stuff that you're doing now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a big difference from the asshole to the person you are now.
I
you
appreciate
weren't that asshole. You were just conflicted in a lot of ways, just like a lot of addicts and alcoholics.
Yeah. Yep.
But I really appreciate you coming on. And,
I thank you. Listen, doing this with you guys have meant so much to me in the program and like in life and just helping me along this process. So to be able to do this with you, I'll have this forever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, when I'm in my 60s, 70s, I'll be looking back at young us. You know what I mean?
I love
So
that.
like this is very special to me and I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us
Thank you.
today, CJ.
Thanks. And that's it for Chaos and Recovery, episode 2. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. See you next